Awaken your spirit, chosen ones. When the universe wants to expose a lie, it doesn't whisper, it orchestrates. There's a reason some people think they're too clever for consequences. They study manipulation like it's a degree, treat people like pawns, and move through life thinking the rules are for everyone except them. But here's the twist. Even masterminds forget that the game board belongs to the universe, and the universe doesn't lose. This story isn't rumor, it's real. The obsessed narcissist, the same one who believed they could buy silence, loyalty, or forgiveness, just handed over money to an undercover cop. You heard that right. The very hand that once flaunted power is now trembling in evidence gloves. There's something poetic about it. The same mouth that boasted, "I can't be caught," is now repeating, "I can explain." Every narcissist eventually confuses attention for immunity, but the feds don't care about charisma. They care about receipts. And when receipts line up with crimes, even the loudest egos start speaking in whispers. They say karma has no GPS, but this one, it arrived with flashing lights, an unmarked car, and a recording device that didn't miss a syllable. The chosen ones didn't have to lift a finger. The universe handled the paperwork. So buckle up. This isn't just another story about downfall. It's the kind of poetic justice that makes even the angels smirk. Because when the obsessed narc finally meets divine law enforcement, the show isn't over. It's just getting started. Number 1. The narcissist's confidence was their handcuff. The narcissist's confidence was never strength. It was a ticking time bomb disguised as charm. They strutted through every room like the smartest person there, believing every move was flawless, every plan untouchable. They mistook arrogance for intelligence and confusion for control. The truth is that overconfidence became the very handcuff that tightened with every smug decision. Narcissists are masters at convincing themselves that their manipulations are genius strategies. They think reading people makes them invincible, that emotional control is the same as power. But the thing about people who think they're untouchable is that they stop learning. They stop paying attention. They start recycling old tricks, using the same manipulative patterns over and over, until even the universe gets bored and decides to intervene. Their biggest mistake wasn't their crime. It was believing they could never be caught committing it. Confidence without conscience is a blindfold. It makes you miss the small details, the tone in someone's voice, the silence after your lie, the subtle shift when someone stops trusting you. The narcissist thought the feds were just another set of faces they could out-talk or outwit. What they didn't realize was that their confidence made them easy to read. Predictable, exposed. Every clever move became evidence. Every overconfident smirk was a clue. They believed they were controlling the narrative, when in reality, the narrative was already writing them out. The more they bragged, the more they recorded their own downfall in plain sight. Their arrogance made them sloppy, and in the world of justice, sloppiness is confession in slow motion. In the end, it wasn't the undercover cop who trapped them. It was their own belief that they couldn't be trapped. Confidence turned into the cage they built with their own words, their own pride, and their own inability to recognize when the game had already turned against them. And when the cuffs clicked, it wasn't fate being cruel. It was fate being poetic. Number 2, ego always overplays its hand. Ego is the loudest liar in the room. It convinces people that boldness equals brilliance, and that getting away with something once means they can do it forever. That's exactly where the narcissist went wrong. Their ego wasn't confidence, it was addiction. They needed to feel superior, to prove they were always 10 steps ahead, even when no one was chasing them. That hunger to be seen as smarter than everyone else became the leash that led them straight into the trap. Ego overplays its hand, because it doesn't understand limits. It doesn't pause to think. It doesn't listen. It just pushes. The narcissist kept talking when they should have been silent, kept showing off when they should have stayed low, kept trying to impress when they were already being watched. They couldn't resist performing for attention, even if that attention came from the wrong audience. The feds didn't need to corner them. They just had to give their ego enough room to self-destruct. The more their pride inflated, the less they could see clearly. Ego makes people underestimate others. It whispers, "They're too stupid to catch you," or "You're too smart to get trapped." But that's when blindness sets in, when overconfidence turns into delusion. The narcissist thought they were in control of the setup, not realizing they were being studied the entire time. Every overstep, every boast, every reckless display of confidence was a breadcrumb leading straight back to their downfall. Ego doesn't just destroy relationships, it destroys awareness. It makes people deaf to warnings and blind to consequence. When the deal went down, it wasn't luck that failed them. It was the illusion of superiority collapsing. Their greatest weakness was never the trap or the cop. It was that tiny voice inside their head saying, "You're too clever to fall." And that's exactly when they did, not because the world was against them, but because their own ego was. Number 3, divine timing doesn't announce itself, it watches quietly. Divine timing doesn't rush, but it never misses. It doesn't announce itself or send warnings, it simply watches until everything aligns. The narcissist thought they were moving freely, outsmarting everyone, covering their tracks. What they didn't see was how every lie, every fake apology, and every manipulative act was being quietly recorded by life itself. Nothing happens too soon or too late when it comes to truth. It happens when exposure will sting the most and teach the deepest. The setup didn't appear overnight. It was a slow collection of moments, conversations, and choices. Every time the narcissist thought they'd gotten away with something, another layer of evidence was forming behind the scenes. They called it coincidence. It was actually alignment. Divine timing allowed them to build their own downfall piece by piece, until the day came when the trap didn't have to chase them. It just had to close. What makes divine timing powerful is its patience. It lets the arrogant grow comfortable. It allows the manipulator to feel safe. It gives them just enough success to believe they're untouchable. That's when they stop hiding, when they expose themselves without realizing it. The narcissist thought they were winning, but in truth, they were performing their confession. Every action they took in arrogance was timed perfectly to circle back and reveal what they tried to bury. The timing of their exposure wasn't random, it was surgical. The moment the money changed hands, everything that had been in the shadows for years came into focus. The divine doesn't move out of anger, it moves out of precision. It waited for the exact moment when the mask would crack, the ego would slip, and justice would feel inevitable. When the truth finally surfaced, it didn't explode. It unfolded. Divine timing had been preparing the stage all along. The narcissist thought they were running the show, but they were simply playing their role in a script written by something greater, something that never forgets and never arrives too early, only right on time. Number 4. They were never as smart as the silence they mocked. They thought silence was weakness because they couldn't control it. Narcissists need noise, reactions, arguments, emotions, anything that feeds their illusion of dominance. But the silence they mocked wasn't weakness, it was strategy. While they were parading around with false confidence and loud performances, that same silence they dismissed was quietly stacking truth against them. Every lie they told echoed louder in that stillness. Every manipulation left a trace. and every secret they thought was buried was being quietly unearthed without a word being spoken. The narcissist's biggest mistake was believing that control came from being seen, heard, and feared. They never understood that real power doesn't announce itself, it observes. Silence isn't passive, it's recording. It remembers the tone, the pattern, the inconsistency. While they were trying to dominate through words and presence, the silence they overlooked was calculating, connecting dots, and preparing evidence in ways no argument ever could. They mistook the quiet for surrender, thinking your lack of reaction meant they'd won. What they didn't realize was that silence was the witness they couldn't manipulate. It was documenting everything, not emotionally, but accurately. And when the time came, that same silence spoke louder than any confrontation ever could, not through words, but through proof. By the time their downfall began, it wasn't a surprise to the silence. It was a conclusion. The stillness they mocked became the force that revealed them. Every arrogant smirk, every fake apology, every controlling move was already written into the case they were unknowingly building against themselves. They were never as smart as they thought. They were just louder. Silence doesn't need to prove intelligence. It displays it through timing. And when that silence finally moved, it didn't shout. It simply opened the door to everything they tried to hide and exposed them with the one weapon they never respected: stillness. Number 5. The trap wasn't set by men. It was authorized by energy. They thought they were outsmarting people, but they were really outsmarting themselves. The trap they walked into wasn't just legal, it was spiritual. It wasn't designed by men sitting in an office. It was authorized by the same energy they kept mocking. What they called bad luck, coincidence, or being set up, was actually divine mathematics at work, balancing what had been uneven for far too long. Every action they took against others became a variable in an equation that always adds up to truth. The universe doesn't punish, it rebalances. When someone spends years manipulating, deceiving, and exploiting, they create a debt. That debt isn't settled with apologies, it's settled through alignment. Energy moves quietly, arranging people, timing, and circumstances until the lesson becomes unavoidable. The narcissist thought they were escaping karma, but karma isn't a force that chases. It waits for the perfect moment, when their own momentum turns against them. Their bad luck wasn't random. It was precision disguised as chaos. The undercover cop didn't appear out of nowhere. They were part of a divine setup, a living instrument in the correction of energy. Every choice the narcissist made was being measured against a scale they didn't believe existed. They thought they could rewrite equations with manipulation, bend outcomes with charm, and erase accountability with lies. But energy doesn't care about charm. It cares about truth. By the time the trap closed, it wasn't men executing justice. It was energy finishing its calculation. What they mistook for betrayal was really the universe balancing its own books. The chosen didn't need revenge because universal law never loses count. Every stolen moment, every false win, every illusion of control, all of it was part of the math. And when the answer finally arrived, it didn't come with noise or warning. It came with divine accuracy, reminding them that no one rewrites truth. They only delay its arrival. Number 6. Money was the mirror, not the motive. Money was never just currency for them. It was validation. It was how they measured worth, controlled people, and bought illusions of power. Every dollar they waved around wasn't a tool. It was a reflection. Money showed them who they really were beneath the performance. When they handed that cash over to an undercover cop, they weren't just completing a transaction. They were unconsciously confessing. They exposed the very God they'd been serving all along. For narcissists, money is identity. It gives them the illusion of control, the comfort of superiority, and the ability to rewrite narratives. But that same attachment blinds them. They think they own money, but in truth, money owns them. It becomes the mirror that reflects their hunger, greed, and emptiness. And when energy decides it's time for balance, it uses that same obsession as the stage for their exposure. The hand that used to manipulate others with wealth becomes the hand that signs its own downfall. They believed cash could clean their image, silence the truth, or buy loyalty. But money doesn't hide energy, it amplifies it. The transaction they thought would secure power instead revealed motive. It showed that they weren't driven by intelligence, but by addiction to dominance. The universe didn't need to send a message. It simply let them expose their values through the thing they valued most. When they handed over that envelope, they didn't realize the trap wasn't physical, it was spiritual. The money wasn't bait, it was reflection. It showed exactly what kind of person they were when stripped of appearances. What they thought would buy influence ended up buying evidence. They weren't caught because they were unlucky. They were caught because money always tells the truth. It doesn't lie, it doesn't flatter, and it doesn't protect ego. It simply mirrors the soul of the one holding it. And in that moment, the mirror shattered, revealing everything they worked so hard to hide. Number 7. Obsession always betrays its owner. Obsession always starts small, a fixation disguised as attention, a need to control wrapped in concern. For the narcissist, it was never about love, admiration, or even revenge. It was about power. They needed to feel above you, to prove that your peace was something they could break, that your independence was an illusion they could dismantle. But obsession has a way of turning on its owner. The more they tried to dominate you, the more they exposed the chaos within themselves. They studied your moves, your silence, your strength, not to understand you, but to outsmart you. Yet every attempt to regain control made them more transparent. What they didn't realize was that their focus on you became their undoing. Obsession narrows perception. It blinds the manipulator to their own patterns. They start making mistakes, rushing choices, exposing secrets, and saying too much. Their ego pushes them to prove they still have power, but in doing so, they hand over the evidence that strips it away. The narcissist's downfall wasn't orchestrated by you, it was authored by their addiction to your energy. They thought watching you would give them control, but it only made them predictable. Every move they made to intimidate you became another breadcrumb leading investigators, karma or fate, directly to their door. They became so consumed with watching your life that they stopped protecting their own. That's the irony of obsession. It feeds on the illusion of control, while silently destroying the one holding it. They were so busy trying to make you fall that they didn't notice the ground giving way beneath their own feet. Their paranoia grew, their decisions became reckless, and the mask they wore started to crack in public view. In the end, they exposed themselves, not because anyone cornered them, but because obsession made them forget discipline. It rewired their logic and amplified their weakness. They didn't lose power because you fought back. They lost it because they couldn't stop watching you win without them. Number 8. The chosen don't seek revenge. They embody evidence. The chosen never needed revenge because they were never fighting on the same level. They understood something deeper. That truth doesn't need defense, it just needs time. While the narcissist was plotting, performing, and pretending, the chosen stayed still, not out of fear, but out of awareness. They knew that silence doesn't erase truth, it magnifies it. Their calm wasn't weakness, it was divine documentation. Every moment of restraint became evidence. Every act of peace became a mirror, exposing the other side's chaos. Narcissists thrive on reaction. They feed off emotional chaos because it distracts from their own. But when the chosen refused to react, something powerful happened. The narcissist's paranoia turned inward. They started suspecting everyone, doubting everything, unraveling under the weight of their own lies. The peace they once mocked became unbearable to them because it exposed what they couldn't control. Your calm made their noise deafening. Revenge seeks to hurt. Evidence reveals truth. The chosen don't chase justice, they attract it. Their energy becomes the spotlight that no lie can survive under. Every false story the narcissist told began to collapse under the stillness of someone who didn't need to prove a thing. The chosen didn't have to expose anyone. The contrast between peace and panic did it for them. The most poetic part of divine justice is that it doesn't require action, only alignment. The narcissist thought your calm was ignorance, but it was mastery. They mistook your silence for defeat, not realizing it was the sound of the universe taking notes. When truth finally surfaced, it didn't come through conflict. It came through exposure. The narcissist's own behavior became the evidence, and your peace became the witness. You didn't destroy them. Their obsession with controlling your energy did. Your stillness wasn't a defense. It was the court where divine justice recorded every move. And when the verdict arrived, it wasn't shouted, it was felt. Your calm had already said everything. Number 9. When the narcissist falls, they don't crash, they crumble in slow motion. When a narcissist falls, it's never sudden. It's slow, messy, and painfully revealing. They don't crash in one dramatic moment. They unravel in stages. The mask that once made them appear powerful starts slipping piece by piece until there's nothing left to hide behind. What makes their downfall brutal isn't the exposure itself. It's the drawn-out process of realizing that the image they built is gone for good. Every lie they told, every fake persona they crafted, begins to peel away like paint under truth's heat. They've spent years perfecting their illusion. The confident leader, the innocent victim, the charming manipulator. But when reality catches up, those roles start collapsing under their own weight. The world begins to see the cracks they fought so hard to cover. Their arrogance turns into panic, their charm into desperation, and their fake confidence into visible fear. The same audience that once applauded them now watches in silence as the truth strips them bare. This is what makes their fall different. It's not a dramatic explosion, but a slow disintegration of everything they pretended to be. They start losing control of the narrative. People they used to manipulate begin walking away. Lies that once protected them start contradicting each other. Their mind becomes their battlefield, replaying every scheme and betrayal like a haunting they can't escape. And while they crumble, humiliation becomes their shadow. The very reputation they built to be admired now burns in front of them. Their ego, once their armor, turns into the wreckage. The fall isn't just public, it's spiritual. It's not just about being caught, it's about being seen. Seen without filters, without masks, without excuses. This is their apocalypse. Not the end of the world, but the end of their illusion. It's justice in motion, not through punishment, but through revelation. The narcissist doesn't fall once. They fall every time another lie stops working. And by the time the truth has finished its work, the person who once demanded attention is left in the one place they feared most. Total exposure. Number 10. They mistook access for authority. They mistook access for authority because control was their language. To them, being close to you meant owning a piece of you. They believed that if they could reach you, they could rule you, emotionally, mentally, or even spiritually. Narcissists confuse presence with power. They think proximity equals permission, that being let into your space automatically gives them the right to manipulate it. But access doesn't mean ownership, and the moment they tried to cross that boundary, divine law stepped in to remind them who really governs alignment. For too long, they acted like gatekeepers to your peace. They inserted themselves into your life under the illusion of care or superiority, thinking they had the right to shape your choices and influence your emotions. They didn't realize that being near the chosen doesn't grant dominion. It demands responsibility. The energy of the chosen isn't territory, it's sacred ground. When they tried to dominate what wasn't theirs, they violated spiritual order, and that violation carries consequences. Divine jurisdiction has a way of revoking access quietly but completely. Suddenly, the connection they once used to control starts slipping from their grasp. Conversations dry up, their words lose power, and the energy they once fed on becomes inaccessible. It's not revenge, it's a rebalancing. The universe doesn't need to punish them, it simply removes the clearance they abused. And when they try to force their way back in, every door shuts tighter, every attempt backfires. That's when they realize proximity was a privilege, not a right. Their ego can't process that what they lost wasn't a person, but a portal. Being close to divine energy is not something you exploit, it's something you respect. The moment they forgot that, their influence expired, access revoked, connection terminated, divine order restored, and the same energy they once used for control now stands guard, ensuring they never misuse entry again. Number 11. The universe doesn't expose, it reverses. The universe doesn't need to chase anyone down to deliver justice, it simply reverses energy. Whatever someone sends out always finds its way back, not as punishment, but as reflection. The narcissists thought they were building an empire of power, but what they were really building was a monument to their own exposure. Every lie, every manipulation, every cruel act sent energy into motion, and energy, by law, always completes its cycle. What they projected as dominance eventually came home as evidence. They called it bad luck, betrayal, or coincidence, but the truth was simpler. The universe was just returning their own signature. Nothing they did disappeared. It just took time to mature. Every scheme disguised as power came back as undeniable proof, not forged, not fabricated, but signed with their own fingerprints. That's the beauty of cosmic law. It doesn't accuse, it reveals. It doesn't need witnesses or arguments. It just plays back what was already recorded through actions, intentions, and choices. The narcissist spent years manipulating others, convinced that control made them invincible. But power borrowed through deceit is never permanent. When energy reverses, it exposes everything hidden beneath ego's costume. Suddenly the same tricks that once worked start collapsing. The same charm that once deceived becomes transparent. The same lies that once protected them now point directly to their guilt. It's not magic. It's mathematics. Every cause meets its effect. When the universe reverses, it doesn't roar. It rearranges. People start seeing what they couldn't before. Connections dissolve, truth surfaces, and masks crack without effort. It's not about revenge, it's about restoration. Balance always comes, even if quietly. And when it does, it doesn't just expose the narcissist. It proves that no energy, no matter how hidden or delayed, ever disappears. It simply circles back to where it began, carrying with it every intention that birthed it. They thought they were untouchable, but in the end they were only touching what they'd already sent out. Number 12. You weren't their victim. You were their lesson. You were never their victim. You were their awakening in disguise. The narcissist believed they were using you, draining you, and breaking you down for their own ego's satisfaction. But what they didn't realize was that every attempt to manipulate you was shaping the very lesson they were destined to face. You weren't put in their path to suffer. You were there to expose what they refused to see within themselves. Your endurance wasn't weakness. It was the quiet strength that allowed truth to mature until it couldn't be denied anymore. They mistook your patience for submission, not realizing it was discipline. You didn't fight back because you were powerless. You waited because you understood timing. You knew that truth doesn't need to chase. It unfolds when it's ready. Every insult, every deception, every attempt to undermine you was planting a seed that would later bloom into their realization. Your stillness gave the universe room to move, to let divine justice prepare its own reveal without interference. Narcissists feed off reactions, but you didn't give them one. You gave them reflection. Your calm became their confrontation. The peace they mistook for indifference became the mirror they couldn't escape. You held your ground not because you wanted revenge, but because you trusted the higher process, and that trust became the very force that stripped them of illusion. When the tables turned, it wasn't by your hand, it was by alignment. They finally had to face themselves, and that was the one battle they were never built to win. They'll remember you not as someone they destroyed, but as the one who silently dismantled their false power without lifting a finger. Your endurance wasn't survival, it was divine participation. You were never the casualty of their chaos. You were the catalyst of their awakening. Number 13. The real trap was spiritual, not legal. The real trap was never about handcuffs or legal charges. It was energetic. They didn't just get caught breaking the law, they got caught vibrating in a frequency they couldn't escape. Every choice they made, every lie they told, every manipulation they carried out, tuned them to a lower frequency, one where truth echoes endlessly and masks melt under the heat of exposure. They didn't fall into a setup, they fell into resonance with the energy they created. And once that vibration locked in, there was no running from it. Spiritual law works differently from human law. It doesn't need evidence, witnesses, or confessions. It operates through energy, the unseen record that never forgets. The narcissist thought they were clever enough to outsmart systems and people, but you can't deceive vibration. Energy mirrors back exactly what it receives. They kept lying, scheming, pretending, and manipulating, not realizing they were building their own energetic cage. Each falsehood tightened the frequency around them until truth became unavoidable. They weren't trapped by the feds. They were trapped by the frequency of their own intent. Every time they spoke deceit, that energy followed them, reshaping circumstances, aligning events, and echoing until the truth had nowhere left to hide. What looked like a coincidence, the undercover cop, the sting operation, the timing, was simply spirit synchronizing accountability. And when the exposure hit, it didn't just strip their reputation, it stripped their vibration. The charm no longer worked. The manipulation lost its effect. Their voice, once persuasive, started carrying a hollow ring. That's what happens when the spirit collapses under its own deception. The real prison wasn't the one with bars. It was the one built from frequency, a spiritual feedback loop where every lie loops back louder and every mask melts faster. They didn't just lose freedom, they lost the illusion of control, and in that silence where no trick could save them, they finally met what they'd been running from all along, themselves. Number 14. Justice doesn't arrive loud, it arrives surgical. Justice doesn't come with noise or warning. It comes with precision. It doesn't need to announce itself, argue its case, or prove its authority. When divine justice moves, it does so quietly, cutting through illusion with the accuracy of something far greater than human planning. By the time they realized what was happening, it wasn't chaos. It was choreography. Every event, every person, every coincidence had been aligned perfectly to deliver an outcome that was never random but written. The narcissist believed justice was something they could dodge or delay. They mistook delay for denial, thinking silence meant safety. But divine order doesn't rush. It waits until every hidden motive, every false alliance, and every mask has fully revealed itself. It lets them dig deep enough into their illusion that exposure becomes undeniable. When it finally strikes, it doesn't destroy instantly. It dismantles layer by layer, so the lesson penetrates where punishment never could. They thought an arrest was just a legal act, paperwork, timing, bad luck. But this wasn't man's law catching up. It was universal correction manifesting through human systems. Justice had already been written into their path long before they acted. It was coded into the energy of every decision they made against truth. Their fall wasn't sudden. It was inevitable. Every deception they sent out eventually circled back, precise and surgical, leaving no space for excuses or escape. That's the power of divine justice. It doesn't shout or seek applause. It moves in stillness, cuts in silence, and delivers consequences that teach as they wound. The revelation wasn't about being caught. It was about being seen, not by people, but by the very force they thought didn't exist. When justice finally arrived, it didn't roar like punishment. It whispered like prophecy fulfilled. In the end, everything that happened wasn't random. It was orchestration. The fall of the narcissist wasn't just about crime and exposure. It was about alignment. Every lie they told, every illusion they built, every manipulation they rehearsed was quietly being recorded in the ledger of divine timing. The chosen didn't have to plot revenge or force outcomes. They simply had to remain still while truth did its work. That stillness became the storm. That calm became the proof. What started as arrogance turned into evidence. What began as control turned into collapse. The narcissist's downfall wasn't punishment, it was revelation. It showed how every false power eventually meets real order, how ego always circles back to humility, and how the energy of deceit can never outlast the vibration of truth. The same silence they mocked became the voice that testified against them. The same peace they tried to destroy became the force that ended their illusion. This is what divine justice looks like. Not rage, but reversal. Not noise, but precision. The universe doesn't forget. It simply waits until the truth can't be denied. The chosen ones were never victims of manipulation. They were witnesses to balance. And now, as the mask falls and truth stands tall, it's clear that everything unfolded exactly as it was meant to. Justice wasn't delayed. It was perfectly timed. If you felt this message, if it resonated deep within you, then you already understand that nothing hidden stays hidden forever. Truth always returns to the surface. Stay awakened, stay aware, and stay aligned with what's real. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this video. Your energy helps spread truth where it's most needed. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more deep, raw, and awakening messages just like this. The story isn't over, it's only beginning. God bless you.